Hello Mukund. So welcome to GHRC Know Your Member talk show. Guys, today we have Mukund, a seasoned professional whose journey beautifully bridges the world of scientific research and human resources. Once again, welcome Mukund.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, Srinidhi.
Yeah. So Mukund, your profile highlights a rare blend of life sciences technical expertise and extensive HR leadership supported by coaching and OD certifications. This combination gives you a strong foundation to bridge scientific rigor with human centric HR practices. So, Mukund, with over 32 years of experience spanning scientific research and HR, could you introduce yourself and tell us how your scientific background complements your approach to HR and leadership coaching?
Okay. Wow. That's a heavy question to start off with itself. But anyway, I started off as a junior biologist researcher long ago, way back in 1987. I feel that I'm a time traveler, having come from the previous century into this one. Okay. So I started off as a junior research fellow in the Indian Institute of Science after my master's in biochemistry in 1987, and then moved on to companies like AstraZeneca, Dr. Reddy's, and Strides Arcolab much later. From IASC, I went to AstraZeneca. And those days it was called the Astra Research Center in Malleshwaram in Bangalore. And I joined there as a research associate and I went into biological research. I was doing molecular biology and cloning work to start off with. Uh, from there, worked in out there. I worked in several projects, different research fields, all within biology, mostly in the cloning, molecular biology, and protein work. Uh, and I worked like that for about 7 years totally. And I was doing bench work. And what it taught me that those initial years of scientific work at the laboratory bench taught me a great deal of patience, a great deal of attention to detail, a lot of planning, and organizing, planning, organizing, attention to detail, and also a lot of communication. It taught me how to communicate scientific data and make presentations to scientific and technical audiences. Uh, and everything, all the learning was on the job. Okay, there was, of course, guidance and inputs given by my seniors and my managers, but you had to do everything yourself. You had to be self-reliant and you had to be resilient and you had to be very patient and you had to take setbacks in your stride. In science, you see a lot of failures and disappointments. And that is one thing you have to learn to take in your stride. Uh, and the company, the organization was very, empathetic in that way. They understood because it was a research center. Everybody understood that failures and disappointments and setbacks are part of the game. So that way they were very empathetic. Uh, so that's one thing I learned uh, about being empathetic and taking setbacks in your stride. Those two lessons, and I have sort of applied that throughout my career. Uh, uh, Somewhere along the way, after about 8 years, I realized that, I wanted to do something else. And there was an opportunity within the organization itself to move into the HR field. And then I sat back and reflected and thought, uh, you know, I can specialize myself as an HR person for the research community, for the scientific research community, especially in life sciences. So that's how I found that opportunity and I made that move. Of course, it took a lot of convincing, influencing, and persuading the management to give me that chance. And they did after a lot of dialogue and conversation and back and forth. They did, and that's it. That's where there was no looking back after that. and I moved into HR somewhere in 1998. Uh, then in 2002, I moved to Dr. Reddy's. I was the HR head for that R&D center in Astra, where I witnessed the merger of Astra and Zeneca. I was fortunate enough to witness that merger and experience that merger. I even had an opportunity to go to London and participate in the first merger conference of Astra and Zeneca, where about 400 HR people from all over the world had landed up. And that was a fantastic experience in that the attending that merger conference. After that, in 2002, I moved to Dr. Reddy's. And there I got a lot of exposure to HR concepts that we talk about today. I got a peer group, a huge peer group of, and began to network. That's where I learned about networking. I learned a lot of HR fundas there. And it was that was an amazing experience as well. I was there for 2.5 years and moved back to Bangalore. Dr. Reddy is in Hyderabad, incidentally. And I moved back to Bangalore to Strides our collab, and then to Quintiles. Quintiles was again an amazing experience. It was a global multinational work in the area of clinical research, clinical data management, and pharmacovigilance. And that again was a blend of tech. That was the first company which was blending tech and HR beautifully in those days, in 2006, 2007, 2008. In those days, tech and HR were being blended very well. What we talk about today, HR, tech, HR, and so much of technology that we talk about today, I experienced the first waves of those in those days as the HR head for Quintiles India. I was there for about 4 years, and then I tried to do something else, but that was not so successful. But again, as I said, I took failures in my stride. I went into education, but that and tried to do was a program director for some program on entrepreneurship, but that didn't work out too well. And then I came back to corporate. I joined Syngene, uh, uh, where I went into a place called the Biocon BMS R&D Center, and that's where my last stint of about 8 years, I spent it there, and as the HR head for that unique R&D center, which was a blend of two companies, Biocon, rather Syngene, which is a sister company of Biocon, and Bristol Myers Squibb, which is a US giant, pharma giant. So it was like working for two companies for the price of one. Anyway, so uh, that was my career journey, and I retired from the BMS R&D Center in Bangalore. Uh, and after that, I was freelancing for some time, and now I'm consulting. I'm a consulting fractional HR head, as you call them these days. I'm a fractional HR head and a consultant for a biotech startup called Bugworks Research, uh, which is into drug discovery, and it's a small unit, but nevertheless making great progress and great strides in the field of drug discovery, in the fields of antibiotic research and cancer. So that's where I am right now, and I do mentor, coach, and train people, budding HR people, as well as some few technical people and any mid-level or early mid-level managers who uh, ask for my help or in advice. I do mentor coach them. So that's where I am in my journey in life.
Yeah, that's great. So now studies shows that HR professionals with technical or scientific background brings unique analytical skills and process orientation, which enhances talent management in specialized fields like biotech and pharma. Now my question is, how has your foundation in scientific research shaped your approach to HR processes, especially in managing talent and development in highly technical environments?
Oh, that's a loaded question, but I'll try to answer that, keep it brief. Uh, my scientific background has helped me in one way. I pay a lot of attention to detail and look at any subject from, I try to look at the subject from multiple perspectives. So if I have to set up any HR process in a in a scientific company, say, for example, in Bugworks research, I've done that. I had to set up a career ladder. A career ladder is the structure and the career ladder for uh, career progression for the scientific staff, as well as the administrative staff and the support staff. I approached that project with a lot of detail. I had to look at the existing framework, which was practically nothing. And then I started reading up and talking to people, talking to the senior leadership, talking to scientists, and then doing my own background homework. And then from my past experience of from other companies, I saw what was out there and what currently people do. And I sort of designed the career ladder based on some known principles only, nothing fancy. Which I kept it very simple. Of course, you had the designations. I had to create grade levels to match those designations. And what I did was I defined the uh, characteristics, the job characteristics and the job requirements for each designation, as well as the competencies, and sort of created a kind of a progression from the bottom to the top. And that's how, so I applied certain basic systematic, I took a basic systematic approach to creating that career ladder, and now it's in place and it's working well. It's been adopted, accepted, and signed off by the senior management, and it's working well now. Promotions and career advancements and lateral moves, all that happens according to the career ladder. So that's one example I can give you,
Okay.
right?
So, employee engagement in biotech or pharma is often challenged by highly specialized roles and rapid innovation cycles. Tailored engagement programs that focus on professional development and scientific curiosity have shown higher retention. Now, what employee engagement initiative have you found most effective in life sciences companies, and how do they address the unique challenges of retaining specialized talents?
Okay, employee engagement is a people engagement, and scientists are no different from other human beings in terms of being engaged with their work. I mean, it's a personal characteristic. You have to be committed. You have to be in flow. I don't know whether you've read that book called Flow by I think it's a European name, Mikhail C. Chick means okay. So scientists need to be in flow when they work, and they have to deliver their best. And to keep them in flow is the biggest challenge. And that depends on several factors, the working environment, the kind of hygienes that you have in the company, the way they are treated in the organization, the knowledge sharing, the informal culture, informal interactions, less hierarchy, and less hierarchical symbols in the place. All these contribute to keeping scientists engaged. They have to be, intellectually stimulated all the time. An idle mind is a devil's workshop, so you have to keep them occupied in their work, and the work has to be interesting. So, I mean, all this superficial engagement stuff like Rangoli competitions and birthday cubbies, cake cutting, all that is I mean, those are all superficial stuff. That's not going to cut the ice. What matters is intellectual stimulation, uh, uh, a very harmonious working environment, less hierarchy, open culture, ability, and most importantly, psychological safety. Recently I did a podcast on psychological safety a while ago, just a few weeks ago, and I can't stress that I can only stress that that's one of the most important factors in engagement. People must feel free to speak up anything. They must be able to pinpoint mistakes or declare their own mistakes and point out errors in others' theories or others' submissions. Because whoever it is, whether it's a senior, junior, or they should be able to freely point out anything going wrong anywhere in the organization, and that I think contributes a lot to engagement. That's when a scientist feels, committed, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, all that. So all these contribute to employee engagement. Of course, the leaders, the scientific leadership and the top management have a very important role to play in nurturing such an environment. It's the environment that matters. It's the culture that matters. So that's what keeps scientists engaged. Of course, then other things like other platforms like for knowledge sharing, like journal clubs, conferences, symposia, workshops, debates, presentations, and interactions. They're all important, of course, in fostering that scientific knowledge rich environment, and that keeps the science going. There has to be a free flow of information, debates, discussions, all informal, of course, mostly. Those things keep the wheels moving.
Okay. Now, neuroleadership applies neuroscience to leadership practices, improving decision making, emotional regulation, and collaboration. Brain based coaching enhances self awareness and growth by aligning with how the brain learns and adapts. So, could you share an example how you have applied neuro leadership or brain based coaching principles to enhance leadership capabilities or team performance?
Srinidhi, I'll be honest here. I have not worked in the neuro leadership area, and I don't particularly recall using any neuro leadership principles as such in my coaching or HR work. However, having said that, I can only say that I have done a lot of training programs and sessions, informal sessions with groups and teams, as well as with individuals, where I try to educate them on how the brain is structured broadly and how the brain functions and how our behaviors are reflections of brain functioning. I talk about the three parts of the brain, the midbrain, the hindbrain, and the forebrain. And I also educate them on the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, and educate them on how the amygdala hijack can, just take over everything, and rational thought can come to a complete halt, and emotional responses can take over. So that's the kind of intervention that I have done with people. I have not particularly worked on neuro leadership as such. And these are all over coffee chats or just across the table sessions with people. And with scientists, let me tell you, we have to be as informal and as hands-off as possible. You must let them do their work. The less HR interventions there are, the better. That's the one difference that I can tell you between HR in a research environment and HR in other companies. You have to be more hands-off and less interventionist in a research environment. You intervene only when necessary and when called for. Because if you keep heaping and uh, coming up and introducing HR stuff into their work, they feel very disturbed, and it interrupts their scientific work, and they don't like that. If you keep calling them for training programs and offsites and events, these fun events, they don't like it. If it's done to, you have to do that. You have to space it out and do it minimally. You just keep a hands off and let them do their scientific work, because scientific rigor is very important in their work, and they have to do deep work and apply deep thought and that takes a lot of time, effort, and patience on their part. So the less you interrupt them, the better.
Okay.
I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. Now, biotech startups often face challenges like scaling culture, talent scarcity, and regulatory complexities. HR strategies need to be agile, fostering innovation while building foundational HR system. Now, my question is, in your consulting work with biotech startups, what unique HR challenges have you encountered, and how have you adapted your strategies to support fast-paced innovation to driven growth?
As I just answered in the previous question, the less HR stuff you introduce into the place, the better. You you have to be very strategic in terms of introducing HR systems. And the moment you say I'm going to come up with an HR initiative, all everybody gets very alert and very sensitized, and they don't like it. So you must time your intervention very carefully. And the two main challenges, as I see in the startup environment, in a biotech startup environment, one is recruitment, hiring the right person. Because we are a small organization, we want to be very, very selective and very, very precise in our hiring. We want the right person for the job. So our recruitment process is very stringent. And that's what makes it challenging both for us as an organization and for the candidate. Uh, we and I aim to make it more stringent whenever more stringent, because we want the right person. A wrong hire in science can be a disaster for the company, because it's a long-term investment in the individual, and the individual also needs to work with the company over many years, because in research is not a one-off game, and it's not an overnight fly-by-night venture. You have to invest years and years of time, effort, and work to get a result. For example, in drug discovery, how do you think a new drug is discovered and developed? It takes 14 to 15 years to get one product which you see in the drugstore. It takes billions of dollars, almost $2 to $3 billion to get one new molecule out. And so new molecule or a new medicine on the medicine shelf in the drugstore. So obviously we need people who can stay with us for a very long time, who will work with us, who will grow with us. We don't want fly-by-night operators. We don't want people who will just come there for money and say, okay, what is my today I'm a scientist, tomorrow I want to become a senior scientist, day after tomorrow I want to be vice president. We don't want people like that. Sure, we want people to be ambitious, but not mercenaries. We need to have committed people who are dedicated to science, who see science as a passion and science as a calling. So recruitment is one challenge. The second challenge is performance management. Scientists hate performance management. It's not easy to assess scientific performance in science, because there are a lot of variables and a lot of factors not in the control of the individual. So a smart manager in science is someone who can sort of empathize and understand what comes in the control of the individual and what is not in the control, and assess the efforts and results very carefully. Results and in science, setting goals in science is not that easy as it's not like a finance company or a traditional business organization where you have to hit numbers quarterly. Okay, this quarter I do $2 million, next quarter I have to do three, and the fourth quarter, the final quarter, we must end up with $5 million. It's not like that. It doesn't work that way. Here there are a lot of variables, unknowns, ifs and buts and uncertainties, which you have to deal with along the way. You have to course correct, you have to ask questions, you have to question your own assumptions when how you started. So there are a lot of uh, factors which come up when you have to do scientific work. So assessing scientific work, assessing scientists and evaluating them and rewarding them becomes a challenge. But it's doable. It's not that it's not doable, but one has to pay deep attention to it. So that's my submission on this question. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. Now, change management in research driven organization requires balancing scientific rigor with human adaptability. Successful change involves transparent communication, stakeholders' involvement, and tailored learning intervention. So, what are the key success factors for driven organization change in research intensive environment, and how do you navigate employee resistance during these transitions?
Okay. Yes, you have the change, like any other organization, change is always unsettling. And for researchers too, scientific researchers, change is unsettling, and we have to prepare them. And like any other place here, you have to have frank, open, and free flowing conversations, preferably informal. You have to prepare them, you have to prime them for the change. And the less you deliver shocks, the better. If you have to deliver some bad news, we always prepare the individuals beforehand and then do a formal communication. Uh, that's generally the better way to do it so that it doesn't come as a shock to individuals. Uh, uh, so change management, like any other place, has to be you know thought through, thought out carefully, and one has to be transparent. One has to explain the rationale for the change, why the change is required, why is change necessary. That rationale has to be explained, and that people must sort of buy into that. Then only the change is successful. uh, most places you cannot have a high-handed approach that okay, at the flick of a button or a snap of a finger, things will change overnight. It has to settle in. So it has to settle in slowly, and then only it gets embedded and accepted as a practice. And scientists like to question everything. You have to satisfy them with credible answers, credible responses, and that the top leadership is always on their toes to make sure that they are transparent and they explain everything very clearly to everybody, right down to the last man or the last lady in the place. One has to be extremely transparent, open, and honest and genuine. That's what works with scientists, and you have to allow them to question you. Not like other places where you have a command and control structure and people just say, yes, sir, yes, sir. It doesn't work like that in science. Science has to be open, transparent, and there has to be free flowing communication. Uh, right? So that's how it works.
Yes, I am done with my questions. Is there anything else you would like to share that I might have missed?
I think you've covered it all, Srinidhi. I'd just like to say that as a closing thought, as a closing comment, that yes, scientists are important in the sense they because they drive innovation and they are the future actually for the country. One has to pay special attention to them and provide them with an environment where they can fulfill their potential. And for them the potential is doing good science and coming up with innovations. That is their ultimate goal and their ultimate calling. So creating an environment where they can flourish, they can question each other, they can work in together. And that's another challenge which I forgot to mention. Working as in teams, scientists, you need to enable and help them work in teams, which is a challenge because scientists are very individualistic. Uh, Teamwork doesn't come naturally to scientists. So getting them to understand teamwork and working collaboratively is another challenge, which, but it's doable. It's not that it's not doable. They finally understand that collaboration is what finally matters, because science is very interdisciplinary these days. It's not, science is not a homogeneous field. There are lots of disciplines within science. Within biology itself, there are so many subdisciplines, and each subdiscipline has its own characteristic and own mindsets. People have their own mindsets, and there's a lot of diversity within science. That diversity has to be harnessed, and diversity and inclusion plays a very important role in science. Not in terms of gender and age and all that. It's the diversity of mindsets and thought that has to be harnessed. That's what is important in science. I think with that, uh, I'll pause and close here. Thanks a lot for this opportunity, Srinidhi. I'm really delighted to be here and share my thoughts on this subject.
Yes, thank you, Mukund, for sharing your unique perspective at the intersection of science, HR, and coaching. Your insights were both inspiring and practical. We are grateful for your time and look forward for more such conversation ahead. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.